Hello and welcome to this Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer tutorial, which is mainly aimed at beginners in computing in general, but in photo and image files. So it's a beginner's look at working with different file types. Now this sort of came about from a Facebook group where someone who was obviously a beginner had either brought or downloaded a free image bundle off the internet and was struggling to sort of open them properly in Affinity Photo, I think it was. And so this sort of gave me the idea for this video. So what I've done here is I'm going to have a look at a couple of my collections that I've downloaded over the years, and these were free designs which I got from Design Bundles, and this one's called the Food Vector Set. And you know, when I've opened the file, you got the license that came with it, the link to the internet where you can go to Design Bundles. You have the Mac files, and these are, I'm assuming, PC files only. Although I've never looked in the Mac file, I just assume they're probably pretty much the same thing. Yes, I would imagine they are. Quite why they got different folders, I don't know for sure. But I'm doing this on a PC, I've never used a Mac, so quite where the differences lie, I'm not 100% certain. But if I open this file here, now the person that made up this bundle has done a favour for the person who buys it or gets it for free or whatever, in the fact that they have named the files like SVG, EPS, AI, which is Adobe Illustrator, and then put the PNGs in the separate folder. But in most cases the files are not named, and you wouldn't know what file type they are. Now in Windows, in the View tab, this is Windows 10, in the View tab there's a box here at the end that says File Name Extensions. You put a tick on that and then you will get the file name extensions added on the end. So SVG, EPS, AI. If I come to the PNG files, they will now all be called PNG. So I personally leave that on all the time, so you know what file types they are. Let me just put that on large, and I'll come back to the Home tab. So there's like two types of images. You get like raster images and vector images. Now raster images are, I'm not going to say that what I'm saying here is 100% true, but it's pretty much how I understand it, and it's sort of enough to sort of get by. But there are many different types of raster images, but the main two types are JPEGs, so it would be .jpg, and PNG, so that the file name would end in .png. Like I say, there are others, there's TIFF and GIFs, but the main two are JPEGs and PNGs. Now vector images are, for the most part, they would be like SVG, EPS, AI. So they're the three main types that you can get and use in Affinity Photo or Designer. Now I've come across a few occasions where, say for example, an AI file won't open in Affinity Photo or Designer, maybe because it's too old in a version of Adobe Illustrator when it was made, or maybe it's too new a version of Adobe Illustrator file that Affinity haven't yet caught up with. But for the most part, these vector files will open in Affinity Photo or Designer. So let's first look at the PNGs. So you've got all these different ones here. I'm going to pick one at random. Let's go for this cheese. I'll double click on that, and by default my PNGs open in photo. So the PNG, for 9 times out of 10, will have a transparent background. Now this is this checkered background here, and although it is visually sort of, you can see it because of the grey checkered, there is actually no background there at all. That checker effect is just added sort of by the software to make it, to help us know that that is transparent, because if that grey checkered wasn't there, you'd think it was a white background. But because the grey checkered effect is there, you automatically know it is transparent. It is only a visual guide, it's not actually there, so it will not print, it will only print the cheese or whatever that you open. So let me shut that down, come back to this one here, and so we look at the vectors here. So again, these are all currently on my computer, at least they are set up to open in Affinity Photo. So I'll just click on that, and this one that I opened, which was the SVG, you have all these different fruits, be they coloured in or just the lined versions, and again on a transparent background. And unlike the PNGs, which is a single file and just had the image, these are in different groups. So if I turn off, you've got vector and line, so if I turn off the line group, that will turn off all the lined images, and if I turn off this one, it will turn off all the coloured in images. So if you only want, say, one fruit, for example, well, we'll go back for this cheese image here, and if you wanted just that cheese image, I mean, first of all, it will be easier to turn off all the lines versions, and as you can see with this group here, again, the person that made this has put them kindly into different groups. So if I highlight that group and come to the move tool, so I've highlighted that layer and it has selected all of that group, so I could copy that group and put it into my document and then use it how I want. So you could, just pick one or as many as you want. So, but again, is how well the person that made these files and how well they're set up. These are pretty well set up because they've all been nicely grouped together for us. So that's the SVG. Let's come back to looking at the EPS. So again, I'll double click on that, and it's pretty much the same, but this time it doesn't have a transparent background, it has a white background. And if I open it up, again, you've got the different groups. I'm guessing, you see, this time it's not divided into the lined versions or the coloured in versions. If I turn off that group, it's taken off some of those at the top, and the other group is all the other images. So again, if I wanted that particular cheese group image, so it's in this group here, and if I open that, now these haven't been grouped together. So if I select the cheese, if it's going to let me, as you can see, they are all the different parts of this image, be it the little dots or the block of yellow here, they're all different layers, and you would have to come down here and find where that particular layer is and there's hundreds and hundreds. It's that one there. The one that's highlighted is that layer there. You could try and select the whole lot, but it's not going to let me do that. So use it in this particular case. Using the EPS would make it a bit difficult to just select the cheese that you would want. Let me close that down, and I'll come back and look at the Adobe Illustrator files. So again, I'll click on this, and this time you get this option box that opens up. It says PDF options, and there are some options here, but I normally just click OK, and it will open up the vector file. And again, they're not grouped together nicely. So if you wanted just the cheese, again, it's all in different sections. So, but it will let me this time sort of group them all together by selecting all of it, and then it would be a case of finding where all of those are in this file. I may have gone past it already. Let's go back to the top. This is a time-consuming bit of using. There we go. So there's at least 3 files there that make up that image. There might be others further down. Yeah, I can't see anymore. So it just seems to be those 3. So you could then group those together and then transfer the group over, or just copy all 3 layers if you want to use them that way. So coming back to the next one, so these are all this is sort of AI files, so they should all pretty much work in the same way. So again, you've got the different ones. You've got the lined versions and you've got the coloured versions, so you can use them that way. So I'm not going to sort of go through looking for all the different files in there. So they all got to pretty much work in very similar way. These vector files, they're all either in different layers or different groups, and you need to sort of work out which one you want to use or works best with the way you work. So that is looking at that particular file. And if I come back to this one, now this is sales banners. Again, it was a free from Design Bundles, and it's got the license, and there's some font information which is important because I'll come back to this. And they've divided it into the Mac files, and then you got the vectors and the rasters. So we'll look at the raster files, and with these raster files they've got the JPEG version and the PNG version of each banner. Now I'm going to open number 7 here, so I'll open both the PNG and the JPEG version like that. So let's look at the JPEG version first. Now this has the text on it. This is a single layer file, and it also has the background and the shadow. So pretty much what you see on screen is what you get, and sort of you can't sort of change the text in any way. So if that's what if you want a banner that says best offer, that's ready made for you. The PNG version they've given us doesn't have any text or any shadow or any background, so you can put a new coloured background, you can put your own text in here and up there, and you can do whatever you want and sort of just prove that this is a sort of transparent background. what I'll do is I will add a pixel layer, drag it below that image, and I'm going to flood fill this with, let's try black. So turning that off, you can see that that is the transparent background. Just delete that off. So they're the two different rasterized images. Now with rasterized, because they are pixel images, because at the moment this is the size of this, so I don't know if it tells you. It says currently this is at 15% zoom. So if I bring this up to 100%, and we come to a corner, say that one there. As you can see, at 100%, which is the size that it was made at, the edges are not too bad. They're just slightly pixelating. But if you expand the size of this too much, those edges will pixelate badly, and that will be much more noticeable. And same goes for the JPEG version, so I'll come up quite high, and again we'll come up to this corner, and as you can see, it pixelates badly. So this is where you would sort of come to vector files, and again they've supplied them in Adobe Illustrator format and EPS. Now the problem here is Affinity Photo is basically a photo editing program, so it sort of specializes in rasterized images, whereas Affinity Designer is a vector based program and sort of really specializes in vector images. And although it can do work with rasterized images like JPEGs and PNGs, it is really designed for vector images. And to show this, I'm going to open the number 7 in the Adobe Illustrator and number 7 in the EPS format, both of these in Affinity Photo, and as you can see, you get the similar option here to open. This is the Adobe Illustrator version, and as you can see here, one of the fonts is missing, Allura Regular, which is why this word best here isn't fitting like it should do, because they've replaced it, or the program has replaced it with an available font, because it doesn't have that particular font available. And the EPS version, and as you can see, I mean, it's opened up at 295%, and it is badly, really badly pixelated, even worse than when I opened up the PNG versions. That's because Affinity Photo is sort of struggling with this vector file, because I'm assuming it's not really designed to work with vector files. It's just got the ability to open them, not necessarily to translate them too well. If I bring this back down to 100%, there we go. I mean, obviously it doesn't look very pixelated at 100%, but also the size is 260 by 260, which is quite small and sort of may not be of much use to anybody at that size. And even the Adobe Illustrator file This is currently at 71% zoom, so if I bring this up, say to 200, and as you can see, that is now starting to badly pixelate, and like I said, we have the problem of the font not being available. So if I come back to this one here, like I said, you got the font information. Again, you won't get this with all bundles, but if I open that, it does tell you where you can get the font if it's, if you find one that is missing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up those same two files, but in Affinity Designer. So this time I'll go open with Designer and open with Designer. So I'll come to Designer, and you have the same sort of box here. I'll do that one and then that one there. Again, I have the missing font problem. This is the Adobe Illustrator, mainly because I don't have that font on my computer, so the programs are just sticking another font in its place. But as you can see, this is at 297% zoom, and it is not pixelating as badly as it did in Affinity Photo, because if I make that 297, which is the same zoom as I've got it in Designer, because Affinity Designer is designed for vector images, it handles this much better. And if I do zoom in even further, if I come up to that corner, see, you've still got nice crisp images, and the size now is, well, let's just make that 3000. That's at 3000% zoom. And if I try that at 3000 in Affinity Photo, one, you find it difficult to see it, but that's pretty much, as you can see, that the pixelation at that zoom rate is really bad in Affinity Photo, but in Affinity Designer it handles those edges with no problem, no pixelization, because that is what vectors are designed to be like. You can resize them any size you like and it won't pixelate. So, and pretty much the same thing will be in the EPS file, and again I could zoom this in to 3000 and we come up to that corner again. See, it handles the edges and pixelization with no problem, because it is a vector file opened in a program mainly designed for vector images. So it is really a case of, if you're just going to be working with PNGs, JPEGs and sort of fairly basic vector images, you can get away pretty much with just using Affinity Photo. But if you're going to be going for much more complex vector images, be they SVGs, AI files or EPS files, I would recommend you use Affinity Designer to give you that option of opening them up and expanding them to a much bigger size and being able to alter them much easier. So that would be my advice, is if you're going to work mainly with vector images, use Designer. But if you're just going to use vectors occasionally and going to work mainly with rasterized images, then you can use Photo. Now if I just one last, I come back here, I mean, just to prove that Designer can handle the rasterized images. If I put this at Open in Designer, so these are the JPEGs. This one's a PNG, that one's the JPEG. Again, if I zoom in, say at 100%, yeah, it's okay. If you come much higher than that, it has the same problems, because it is a rasterized image, has the same problems as you would get in Affinity Photo, in that it will struggle and pixelate if you go too much above 100%. So that pretty much finishes my beginner's look at various file types that you can get off the internet, and which program is probably best suited to handle the file type that you have. But it does also mean that you need to know what those file types are, so you can make them visible from the view menu in Windows. I'm guessing there must be a Mac way of turning file extensions on. I'm not certain. Even iPads, I don't know whether there is a option on iPads to turn file extensions on and off, but I'm guessing it must be there somewhere. So that is it, really. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.